webinar series शुरू की है because I think it is a shift between conventional instructor-led training to virtual. तो उसमें डिजिटल तो एक प्लेटफॉर्म है, लेकिन वर्चुअल सेशंस में भी बहुत सारे ट्रेनर्स को बहुत सारी चीजें सीखनी पड़ेंगी, प्रेजेंटेशंस को नए तरीके से करना, एंगेजमेंट करना, तो इसलिए ये वेबिनार सीरीज मैंने शुरू की हुई है।
Alright, so
last 2 months आप उनको ले आए।
We are going live in 30 seconds. 6 बजे था तो वो Facebook पे ऑटोमेटिकली।
सजवानी साहब अस्सलाम वालेकुम।
जी सजवानी साहब अस्सलाम।
सर आपकी आवाज नहीं आ रही।
Alright, so we are live on Facebook. You can formally start now.
Assalamu alaikum all the viewers, participants on Management Wisdom webinar series. Today we have a new topic, the paradigm shift in learning and development. To share the thoughts and have an interesting dialogue, my two guest speakers, which has very rich experience in HR, learning and development, local and global. I wanted them to share their ideas and thoughts. So I welcome Mr. Mohammad Sajwani, MD, Evolve HR Consulting, and Mr. Sohail Rizvi, CEO, Institute of Knowledge and Leadership. Both has such an enriched experience that I think today's discussion and dialogue would be very interesting to know the tricks and techniques towards the change which we all need to get ready for. We at Beyond Paradigm do promote digital learning solutions, but along with digital learning, there is a major change in the virtual learning industry, in the instructor-led training versus the virtual sessions, and much more. The conventional TNA needs to be thought differently. The conventional HR practices need to be thought differently. The return on investments need to be thought differently. So all those things we are open to share our experiences, share our knowledge, give you as much as we can. We will welcome your questions in the chat box. So at the end of the session, we'll answer the question and answer as well. So that's how we'll proceed. Now I'll welcome Mr. Sohail Rizvi to give his intro, followed by Mr. Sajwani Saab, and then we'll proceed further.
Hi everyone, Sohail Rizvi. Started my career in quality management, then moved into HR for last 25 years. I've been associated with learning and development. Spent about 15 years of HR, did 15 years of HR in US, working mostly for a retail chain there. Then moved to Pakistan and taught in a university for 2 years, did coaching and consulting and training for about 2 years. Then moved to corporate sector here in Pakistan, worked for Bank Alfala for 4.5 years. Then Bank ABL, Allied Bank for about 5 years as Group Head Learning and Talent Development. That's where I introduced the concept of e-learning way back in 2014. We were the pioneer bank, and we, in fact, Allied Bank received an award from US. Optimus Award is given by Workforce Magazine. So we got that award for our e-learning initiative that really saved a lot of money. When we started that, our training budget was about 100 million, and during the first year, we saved about 38 million just by converting our entire regulatory training programs on e-learning. From there on, I retired about 2 years ago, and I'm associated with the Institute of Knowledge and Leadership, which is again an entity of University of Management and Technology, Lahore, and is based in Dubai, but it operates in the MENA region. Yes.
Thank you. Welcome, Sajwani Saab. How are you, sir?
I'm fine, thank you. Farhan, thanks for inviting me.
I would like a brief intro of your services, sir.
Yeah, very briefly. Farhan, I altogether have been working for around 30 years in primarily in telecom and hospitality. And for a while I moved to here and there, but as I mentioned, primarily I have always been a telecom guy, and for a while hospitality. The most recent assignment that I was undertaking as a full-time career was with hospitality, which was a Serena Group. And prior to that, I worked for Marriott's and Pearl Continental's head office as head of group HR. And prior to that, I have been associated with Telenor, Jazz, and a company that you and I know Mudabbir as well from the famous Pakcom, which doesn't exist anymore. But that's the brief introduction. But I have also served not only in HR, but in various multifaceted and I would say cross disciplines, example from finance to customer services to sales management to HR. So I have been hopping purposely because I wanted to have a diverse experience, not just one. And finally, I stuck to HR because this is something, especially the learning and development part, I believe that is very close to my heart. And this is what I wanted to pursue in later part of my career, that what currently I'm doing. Over to you, Farhan.
Thank you for introduction. I'm sure all the participants would enjoy because two of the richest experienced people are with us. As we said, the topic for the day is the paradigm shift in learning and development. So I'd like to open up and ask both the consultants that how do you see the change happening, and not only how do you see, what would be your guide actually how the learning and development industry, the HR industry, needs to adopt those changes in best interest of their organization and in best interest of the changing scenario to get best results out of that. So share your thoughts that from the conventional to know. Now with the COVID and post-COVID, I would say, I personally think things would not be as normal as it used to be. The new normal would definitely be something with different perspectives. So we need to create that thoughtfulness and the wisdom to see what would be the challenges and how those challenges could be adopted in the best possible way forward. So I'm open to that. With this, let's start an interesting dialogue. Whoever wants to take over from Sajwani Saab, you'll proceed, or Sohail Saab. Let's have a good debate on that.
Okay, I'll let Sajwani Saab go first.
Thank you, gentlemen. To me, in fact, there is a little disruption in the internet. I don't know where it is, which end it is. But what I understood your question, I will try to answer that. In my view, and how we have seen the organizations grow over time in Pakistan and of course internationally as well, that training and development also went through a dramatic change, just like onboarding and the other parts of HR, like assessment center, I would call it, or any other, because the traditional or conventional learning and development, if we see that there was a classroom kind of a setup, and which still exists, unfortunately, in many organizations in Pakistan who do not want to invest in IT and technology part. They still gather this classroom, and particularly in hospitality industry, this very much exists because there is a worker class as well, which needs to be gathered and assembled, and they need to sit in a classroom setup and learn things. But all this, what I call it, paradigm shift in L&D is geared to the seamless customer experience. What we want that customers should be satisfied, more satisfied what they used to be. And I think this particular area, when it comes to technology companies, is much easier a goal as compared to other industries, which really look after or take care of their spendings on HR and learning and development. Coming back to the original question, which I understood, that this, what we call it, paradigm shift in learning and development, mainly the personal development of an individual. For example, employee needs to be looking after his own ambitions, what he or she wants to achieve, as compared to organization expecting from them. In fact, I don't know whether I'm able to explain it properly or not, but how I see that in the conventional method, organizations push employees to upskill themselves or improve their skill set. But in this new method, employees are encouraged to do things on their own, where they lack the skill sets they lack. They must improve upon them and proceed and make their fortunes accordingly. So there are some basic expectations on that, particularly on the paradigm shift in L&D, and there are other things as well which I would like to touch upon. But for now, I would like to go to our other participant who can share his views. I think we need to be switching screens, Farhan Saab, as well.
Yeah, thank you, Sajwani Saab. Really appreciate it. I think even before COVID started, the change had already started to set in. And one of the major change was that before we used to have soft skill trainings and hard skill trainings. And that was really very confusing for a lot of people and very hard to sell sometimes to the top management. They were keen on hard skills, but they were not very keen on soft skills. But then we realized that hard skills and soft skills, they go hand in hand when you're talking about a role of a position. So when you talk about a position and a role in an organization, it requires both your behavioral competencies and it also requires technical competencies. And that's where the new model came in, that instead of preparing or giving training on the basis of hard skills or soft skills, we should develop people on the competencies for that particular position or role. So if it's a customer service individual, he has the requirement for different competencies and role, and then you measure what are the level of the competencies that are required for the particular role and what competencies that the individual holds with him. So the gap becomes a learning need analysis. The gap becomes a training need analysis for that particular person. Individualized learning need analysis takes place because of that particular model. So competency-based learning need analysis, competency-based assessments of an individual and positions have already started to set in. Now the question that really popped up right after COVID was that is it the responsibility of the organization to build that competencies, or is it the responsibility of the individual to build those competencies? So what most of the people in the HR fraternity, they have come to this conclusion that it is the joint responsibility, but the onus of that belongs to the individual. it is his life, it's his career, he has to move forward. So he has to take the onus of taking responsibility of completing his own competency gaps and get ready for the next level competencies for the next position. So this competency-based growth model or competency-based development model is probably the new way forward, especially when it comes to defining what trainings needs to be provided by the organization or needed by the individual. So I think the first thing that most organizational L&D professional needs to understand or do in their organization is to define their competency models, competency model based on the organizational behavioral values and the behavioral competencies of the role. So when they define their behavioral model or competency model for that particular organization, the next step becomes very easy. So I think it's I'm just adding to what Sajwani sir just said. When you talk about customer services, when you talk about hospitality, every position has a different set of competencies and level of competencies as per position. Maybe the front level position has a level 1 competency, and a manager in that particular division or department may have a level 3 competency. So level of competency as per managerial level also needs to be defined.
Very well said, Sohail Saab and Sajwani Saab. I think I would like to take this discussion further. I think COVID has given a different perspective also, and that perspective is that whatever we do within the limited roles, every employee within his own role has to have much more to know than just his subject. So his skill level should be diversified to a little multiple solutions. Working from home or working on his own, right, needs much more than previously known. As Sohail Saab said, the ownership of all those development and change has to be by the individual, by that employee, because change is not in his or the company's control. Change is evident, it can come anytime. Everyone has to grow, everyone has to keep swimming in the toughest business scenarios. So that is how the challenging times would come and keep changing. Let's move forward. Sajwani Saab, you wanted to add that within the L&D, there'll be multiple more angles to see how the L&D can bring value to the organization in this change scenario. How would you further take it along?
Farhan, first of all, I think gone are the days when we used to see that, again, as I mentioned earlier, the classroom situation where we used to assemble people or gather people. We still do in certain organizations, as I mentioned, particularly hospitality, because levels are very different than rest of the corporate sector due to the worker situation. Here, I must mention that when it comes to the paradigm shift in L&D, I would call it that we need to have or we need to see higher employee engagement of the employees. That means that the crowd training sessions are not there because employees need to identify their own training needs in their annual or biannual assessments and so on and so forth. Then if we move on, that by doing that, what
I think we lost Sajwani Saab connection. In between, I think Sohail Saab, you can take over.
Yeah, I can take over. I think I will just take one step forward. Like I said, before COVID, this was a norm that we were working on this positional based competencies. But when we are talking about after COVID, I just wanted to emphasize the situation which was before COVID probably may not be in the same form the way I explained, that everybody is working on the role or competencies. Now organizations are more moving towards contractual positions or in what I call within the organization contractual system, employer contractual based jobs. So we don't do job analysis now the way we used to do. Now we do task analysis, that what body of tasks do we require to complete a job or complete a process. So once we have that body of work to be done, we decide, do we need a job for this, or can we outlet this to someone else sitting at home? So you are, instead of employing people and giving them job, now organizations are realizing that it is much cheaper and it is much better performance wise also, that you start giving those tasks which are not confidential, which does not really require a lot of organizational confidentiality issues. That data or that job of work or that body of work can be outsourced to people sitting at home, or people who are part of your employees before. Now you let them go sit at work and provide that body of work. So that body of work, contracting that body of work releases the organization that they are easy to hand out the task. They set the objectives, they set the scope, they set the timeline, and they set the quality of the work. So if you complete all of these criteria, you will get this payment. If you complete the 80% of the quality, then you get this much payment. So the contractual work is going to increase, and freelance work is going to increase post-COVID. I think this is going to become a sort of norm in a work environment or work culture. And that is going to impact the way we learn also. Because now if I'm doing tasks for two different companies, I need to expand my horizon. I need to expand my body of knowledge myself as someone who's contracted to deliver HR analytics to another organization and HR processes for another organization. So if I don't have knowledge of statistics, R language and analytical skills, I won't be able to serve my clients. So my employer actually becomes my client now. So that nature of work relation is going to change, and it is going to change very rapidly after COVID.
Very true. I think the freelancing market would pick up. We have also observed that certain bigger organizations are moving their call center, back offices job to individual. Now, definitely with this change, the responsibility goes back to those individuals to keep abreast with latest skills, to be independent and to get maximum assignments from different companies. Because if you are a freelancer and working from home, maybe you can do huge assignments, maybe you do multiple assignments in multiple hours.
Very right.
Second thing, another bigger advantage of this realization is that we all need to move away from those big, tremendous investments on capital investments of those buildings to a simpler office or back office assignments. In that perspective, if we see the second biggest population in our country is the female force, or I would say the biggest, more than 50%. So we would encourage a lot of part-time women force to come into the job market, and I think a new segment of job would initiate for all those young ladies and other female folk which not used to come to the office of whatever reasons, and that could be beneficial too. With this, I'll take a pause and I'll go back to Sajwani Saab because we lost him in between, and I think I like Sajwani's perspective on this too. So you can continue from where you are, or you can add on.
Yeah, I think a country as a whole, Pakistan has been really pushing for the gender ratios, particularly the female centric organizations and females with a lot of empowerment. But I have seen that that has been problems in many industries. But with this post-COVID scenario, we expect that our females who are qualified, who are educated enough, would definitely turn back, and they will contribute to the economy, to the society, and in the corporate sector. Maybe that they work from home or they work in the organizations, or whatever the case may be. But in Pakistan, do you guys really see that certain global organizations have mentioned that up till 2022, if their employees do not need to come to work? But with the keeping an eye on the current pandemic situation in Pakistan, this is just for my own understanding to both of you. Do you guys think that this will last longer, or organizations have started working now with limited working hours, like banks were already working, hospitality, hotels have again started, and likewise other organizations will be back to normal in few months' time?
A certain organization might, but I don't think all organization, this model suits all organization. We have to see the nature of the job. Production workers will still have to go to job and go to factories and produce. We are not talking about those jobs. We are talking about office jobs. When we talk about office job, and there was a study that I was going through, I don't recall at the moment who did that study. I can check it out later on. They said the average productive hour of an office worker is no more than 3 hours, 3.2 something hours. So that's the productive hour. So if an organization is paying for 8 hours and getting productivity for 3 hours, it's not in the interest of the organization. Plus the office expense, electricity and all the tea and coffee and everything else that goes with it. But and on the other side, employee has one employer and he's dependent on one employer. All his eggs are in one basket. If he loses that job, he loses everything. So if he goes into this particular model where he freelances for 3-4 different companies, he works 3 hours for one company, 3 for other, and 3. So he's 3 times more money. And on the other side, organization is not paying provident fund, it's not paying gratuity, it's not paying other benefits. So organization is also saving and employee is also making more money. So this model is workable, but it's not workable for all organization, and it's not workable for probably in Pakistan. It might take a while for this model to pick up. But it's a good model.
That's what I wanted to hear.
I'll add something more further. In the last 3 to 4 months, there were certain interesting things which we have observed. One of the bank which was more digitally aligned got substantial growth in the customer base, because a lot of companies were happy about the way things were transforming in that. Similarly, if we see in the automotive industry, automotives was not sold online. So certain automotive companies has started online booking and online delivery. So yes, the way I perceive with COVID or no COVID in the future, multiple angles of revenue generation and work assignments would change. Islamabad Registration Authority, Car Registration Authority, has started a service. They come to home and register a car. That could generate a revenue. You do not need physical offices for all the things to do. There could be a lot of virtual things as well as remote things which could be done. So I think the future would be a combination of physical versus and digital savvy perspective as well. These things would lead to more jobs as well. That's how I would also say.
Right.
Okay.
There is an impact of this on the organization, on HR, as well as on learning and development. Because when you change the workplace dynamics, when we change the relationship of employee and employer, it has a direct impact on learning and development strategies also. Because now when we were delivering training through classrooms and we were having batch sizes of 30, 40 people, it has a cost, it has a lunch cost, venue cost, and faculty cost. Those costs will make the program much more expensive for the organization. But going on online training or e-learning modules, company is not only saving, but in fact, it is also increasing its reach. Companies which have a geographical reach, they have offices in Gilgit, Chitral, Chakwal, and all of those small little places. Now they can reach their employee through online training, which was very difficult through classroom training. So it has a benefit, it has a cost element. The only thing that is still, I would say, is a challenge for L&D professional is measuring the effectiveness of the training, keeping the participant engaged in the session, designing a program in such a way, the instructional design of e-learning is little harder than probably instructional design for a classroom training. Classroom training is easier to design. It's based on ADDIE model. We are all familiar with ADDIE model. So we know how to design programs as per ADDIE model. But when you come to e-learning modules, the entire philosophy, the entire design philosophy changes. So unless we have people who are really good in e-learning instructional design, e-learning delivery methodologies, the tools, the technologies, as well as measuring the effectiveness of training, how much people have learned and are able to apply. So I think this e-learning probably require more post-training coaching rather than probably classroom training. We usually, even in e-learning modules or Zoom-based trainings that we are delivering, I think what happens is, just like classroom training, we deliver the training and then we leave the participant to go back and work on their own. See, the duration of training has reduced. We were delivering for 6 hours of training. We were able to hand-hold little bug, do application, do demonstration, do case studies, which we are not able to do in our Zoom session, which is based on 2 hours or 3 hours. So it is very important that even after the training, you need to do a coaching session, one-on-one coaching session with your participant to enable them to implement. If we are not doing that coaching after the e-learning session, then probably we are not really measuring the effectiveness of the training. And it's as useless as probably the classroom training, many classroom trainings that we were doing before.
Yes, Sajwani Saab, you would add how to measure the training outcome in the virtual world, because in the physical world, it was easier. What to do now?
I think with this e-learning modules, where we have smarter applications, computer applications, where employees do the trainings, and they need to be evaluated or monitored or measured by the L&D professionals. They should be, I mean, their role will go into the background now, as compared to what they used to be in the classroom, middle of the classroom. And I think they should be working here, as Rizvi Saab was mentioning, that this calls for reduction in the headcount at many places, particularly the L&D team, which used to be in the organizations with number of people. I mean, we just need some monitors who can evaluate, who can measure, who can give their helping hand, hand-holding kind of a situation with the employee where needed. But as we mentioned earlier, the onus lies with the employee himself or herself. This is something which we need to understand, that in the paradigm shift occurs when employee takes charge of his own career, his own life, his own future path, where he wants to go or where she wants to go, and that's how. But I mean, this calls for a wake-up call for the L&D professionals as well in the developing sector. or the industry where they're doing. My personal observation is that when I used to be in telecom, I used to see a huge HR departments, from rewards to learning and development to talent management and the HR operations and so on and so forth. They used to size between 40 to 50 people in certain organizations, because that was, I mean, a boom period in the telecom, and the management never cared that how many employees they should have. But with the changes, I think everybody will be pushed to think through and realign their priorities with particular reference to the learning and development manning, that is the headcount, as well as the smarter tools they should employ to assess the performance of the employees. I recently know some people who have availed this COVID pandemic as an opportunity, and they went for online courses even to the Harvard Business School, which were offered free during these pandemic times. So this is, see, people have brains, people have the attachment to their particular industries, and they want to acquire more knowledge instead of sitting idle and watching TV in their free time while working from 9 to 5. They opted for this option, which is magnificent. And that's how the word of mouth spread. And we could see some short ads on LinkedIn from Harvard Business School that they are offering these many free courses. So there is a will, there is a way, and people must look into this, that this is the new age, new dynamics will be in place, and we have to move accordingly. Over to you, Farhan.
I must add here that there's a great news for L&D fraternity. Well, one of the industry, which is the content development, the learning content development, would be the one of the highest growing industry. Yes, and presently we do not have much. Before COVID last year, I did visited about 7 to 8 universities of their social sciences department and mass communication department, and asked them that why are we not teaching these courses? So because the industry didn't knew, they were only teaching mass communication, media, and all that. So this is one of the biggest industry, and our neighboring country is very popular into that. So I think that is a big thing. As Sajwani Saab said, we at Beyond Paradigm represent Skillsoft, one of the global portals. We have seen a tremendous increase globally. We promoted 60 days of free learning to all, even in Pakistan. Thousands of Pakistanis have taken that advantage. What we preach now, bring learning to learner rather than learner to learning. So it is not about I go to an event to learn. It should be in my hand to learn, and all the time at my convenience. That is the change in the paradigm shift of learning and development, and that would leave the future towards a more wisdom and thoughtfulness within the community in Pakistan, because we are 5th largest population. We need to upskill ourselves to the best of possible for our local market as well as for the global market. Sohail Saab, you'd like to add further here?
Yes, there are a couple of things. I think I really appreciate what Sajwani Saab just said. There are a couple of things that are changing also at the same time. And we used to talk a lot about the 70-20-10 rule in training. The 70% on the job, 20% coaching, and 10% classroom learning. And we used to spend all our budget on 10% and nothing on 70%, which was really mind-boggling for me. So that is changing now, because now people are realizing that we need to develop our foremen, our supervisors, our subject matter expert on how to deliver training on their area of specialization. So instead of having a faculty or a training members in your academy that you have about 10, 12 people teaching subject specialists, now each subject matter specialist, a specialist individual in your organization becomes a trainer, and he delivers online training, even sitting from his office for 2 hours. So training is spreading within the organization rather than confining in an academy. So we are moving away from that academy-based or training room-based training model. And this is probably going to revolutionize because now if you have to develop all of these subject matter experts into an online learner, that means there is a need to train them on instructional design, e-instructional design. And that itself, developing content, developing storyboard for your training, that is really going to be very effective. Secondly, what is changing is what we call JI, just-in-time approach. It's the Japanese approach, just-in-time. For example, I am sitting in a faraway branch in a bank, and there is a woman comes in, it's a Parda Nishin Khatun. I don't know how to open an account for a Parda Nishin Khatun. I have never opened an account for a Parda Nishin Khatun. How do I open? I cannot see her face. I cannot know from the ID card. So how do I go about it? So I need to learn, and I need to learn fast. I need to learn on that particular time how to do that. So there should be a training available right there. When I click on the system and I go ask a question, how to open that, I should get an answer. So that's a just-in-time online short model, which we call bite-sized learning. That bite-sized learning to address the issue-based learning, the problem-solving based learning is probably the need of the hour. So organization need to come up with all the problems that they face, each department face, take that issue, design a program or a learning model just based on 1 or 1.5 or 2 minute video on that, and then put it on make it available to all the employees, whoever needs it. So that
maybe that is far-fetched for certain organizations. There should be FAQs available on their desktop, and that can be resolved. For example, as a very apt example that you just mentioned, that how to deal with that situation is a fix that the lady is sitting across the table and you don't know how to go about it. So this is something which you should be on your fingertips, and you can just resolve instead of running around in the bank and finding out how to address that very issue.
So yeah, I've just gave that an example, but what I'm talking about is just-in-time training. We used to have just-in-time delivery, just-in-time supply chain management, but now what we are talking about is just-in-time training also. So I need training when I need training. I don't need it through 2 months before. I don't need it in future. I need it now. So that frequently asked question is a very good way to address that issue.
We all belong to HR fraternity and L&D fraternity. Are you positive that the HR fraternity, the L&D fraternity would quickly adopt these changes to happen and move forward, or they'll keep struggling the way they used to do things? How would you say about it? Because it's time for HRD, L&D teams to say yes to change right now.
I only have one phrase: either you evolve or you perish.
Sajwani sir, how would you say? Because we have to coach all those people. We had been telling others to change, but this is our time to change now.
I just saw a colleague from our learning fraternity, Furqan Shamsi, dropped a comment, and Furqan joined a bank last year or this year as head of learning, and now he's head of content management. The same discussion that we were discussing a while ago, the point that learning and development and content development go hand in hand. And that is how the future lies, where the content developers need to come and design the learning and development courses tailored for the need of the organization. Your question regarding it's high time that the HR industry and learning and development industry within Pakistan needs to understand, they need to understand that more the merrier syndrome is gone. That is gone, that is history, and say a nice bye-bye to that ambitious, that I am leading a team of 40 people or 50 people. They need to learn to invest, because you see there is a problem. HR normally advocates a lot about the change management, but when it comes to change management for their own selves, they also equally get scared. And this is a human psychology. I think people resist change because they are afraid of it. So that is something which we all need to understand, that I remember in one of the organizations where I worked, there used to be a huge finance department. And when I used to just go down to that department, I used to see that there are, tons of papers on every table, and it never used to get reduced, even in 6 months. And I had to ask their questions that, is it the same pile of papers that is lying on these chaps' tables, or you shift them from one place to another, or they are there forever? See, that is also a way where people want to identify these huge teams with their domains. They think that this will be an amazing thing to do, that we have more people. But unfortunately, that luxury doesn't exist anymore, and will not exist any longer. When it comes to organizations, there need to be what I call it lean, mean, and they have to be logical enough that both HR and L&D and certain other, in certain organizations, L&D is not part of HR for some good logical reasons as well, which is not our topic today. We can discuss it some other time. But the short answer is yes, wake up call for HR and L&D both. And we need to, we should be seeing this coming in near future, as soon as this things normalize. Farhan.
Thank you, Sajwani Saab. I'll further add, I think with the COVID and the changing environment, individual players or contributor as an individual is the name of the game. It would no more be a department performance evaluation or assessment. I think every individual would be accounted for. And if that paradigm comes into play, the return on investment on upskilling and new skilling would be pretty easy to see, and the investment which our companies has done, because a lot of works, let's say work from home kind of scenario would need to be done by that individual. And if that individual is unable to deliver that in the same number of hours, the objectives might not be achieved. So there would always be a link of now L&D with the real performance management and the outcomes. It could not be the happy sheet which used to be at the end of the training session. The event was good, the trainer was good, the venue was good, and it never evaluated what did I learn out of it. How would I add back the knowledge which I have gained in this training? So I think it's a paradigm shift in L&D sector to understand how that knowledge would be translated into a business outcomes. That's how I would contribute. Sohail Saab, what's your thoughts?
Yes, I think the way things are changing, we can learn a lot from technology and software and IT companies. They use a very common method we call agile methodology. They have agile teams, and they have agile methodology of developing softwares. We as an L&D professionals, we can learn a lot from that agile methodology. So we cannot really say that, okay, let's find this particular model and get fixated on it. Agile means you keep on developing your content, you keep on trying that content on one customer, then you improve it for the next customer, next client, or for next batch. So just like they keep on coming up with a new version of their own software or program, we as a trainer also need to develop our own new version and the new version of our content. If we are not changing our own version, if I'm not developing myself, I cannot even develop a new content. I cannot develop a new version of what program I delivered 2 years ago, 3 years ago. Well, I have still seen people who are still repeating the same stories that they repeated 3 years ago. They don't update their content. They don't update their methodology. They don't update it. So this method is not probably going to serve them in this new context. It may have worked in the old context, but in the new context, this is not going to work. So
as you mentioned, rightly mentioned,
there are 12 agile principles. And one of the key principles is whenever you're developing something, you should start from the customer and then move backward. Develop your learning methodology outside in rather than inside out.
True. And I think you very rightly pointed out that either evolve or perish. That there is no third option to it. And that is something which we all need to understand. And particularly the older lot of L&D professionals, with all due respect to them, I think it will be difficult for that category of trainers that they need to get closer to the new methodology, and some of them are already doing it. For example, this pandemic has forced them, वो कहते हैं ना उर्दू में चाहते हुए या ना चाहते हुए, whether they were willing or not, they still went ahead and started using Zoom or Facebook Live or StreamYard or whatever methods to communicate with their clients. And that's how the future lies. And I think they need to work more because they bring along tons of experience in the industry where they're working. One thing that I would like to point out here, Farhan and Rizvi Saab, that this knowledge transfer, as we call that functional trainings or soft skill trainings, I think organizations also need to think the knowledge transfer for the future successes within the organization as well. In the same light as we are discussing for the functional or soft skill trainings, the future leaders need to be prepared on the same lines. People who are aspiring or people who have been identified as future leaders, they need to go through the rigorous and same online method of training themselves, and they need to be evaluated accordingly. This is something that we keep it hush-hush in the organizations, but I think we need to make it something which is public, and this is the future way. This is how the future leaders will be selected, will be identified, and will be posted in the organization. Somebody will not come from the moon to take over from the current CEO unless he's part of the team and he goes through the same method and same rigorous online trainings or L&D intervention, we call it. Over to you guys.
Yes, I second your point, Sajwani sir. Very, very valid point. And I think that should be the focus of L&D in an organization. Like we said, the technical training and the other competency-based training should be handed over to even the line manager or probably the subject matter expert. And their focus should be developing future leaders. That is the key responsibility of L&D team in an organization. Developing talent, identifying talent, developing talent, and building the leadership pipeline. These are the focus area where L&D need to work on. That's where they need to focus. That's where their assessment centers, their talent development strategies, and their leadership pipeline should focus on. Totally agree with that.
Mr. Furqan has said transition from delivery focused approach to strategic focus for L&D. I would like, with your permission, to add Mr. Furqan to the session to express quickly his views about this. How would we move from delivery focus to a strategic focus, because it is a major shift not for L&D, HRD, whereas it is a shift from the leaders of the organization to understand how training would completely shift in a new paradigm and how they need to take the ownership to facilitate their L&D people to make it happen. Furqan sir, we'd like to hear your thoughts.
Ji, Assalamualaikum ji. Obviously, I was trying to be a silent observer here. Not very silent though. I was making some points. Just returned from office and wanted to connect. Didn't want to miss it. Hence, I was late as well. So, courtesy, Mrs. She just brought me a cup of coffee as well, just to join and enjoy the whole talk. It's a wonderful debate, by the way. So, with the permission of gurus, my concern about this delivery focus to strategic focus is, I think it's just augmenting the debate you're already having. It's about that it should not be the function of L&D should not be only about that we need to complete number of trainings or the number of people. It should number be strategic. Number of like hours, obviously. So it should be focused on that the futuristic ambitions or the goals or the visions of the organization should reflect within the training programs. And the whole duty actually lies on the content development, because the instruction designer, if they're not contemporary, if they're not up to the, say, just in time, as Rizvi Saab suggested, or responsive learning interventions, they will be left behind. So this is what my idea of the new L&D is actually in this paradigm. Although we need to have a buy-in, which was my earlier question, that how this buy-in of the senior management, we need to ensure how we get it as L&D professionals.
Oh, well, I can share my experience. I can share what we did. When we developed a leadership development program in the Allied Bank, we engaged our C-level team as a faculty member. We were developing some middle level people as a leaders, but our strategy was taught by our CFO. Our organization's vision and future growth was taught by our CEO. The HR strategy and philosophy and where do we see our people was taught by CHRO. Similarly, what is the risk that the bank faces was taught by the chief risk officer. So if you engage your C team in your leadership development, you already get the buy-in. And the benefit was that, as a second part of it, what gives the benefit to the people, these were middle level managers. They were not really very senior managers, but they were getting ready to move into senior manager position, senior leadership position. So they were allowed as an observer to sit in a ManCom meeting. What happens? What are the challenges that organization faces? So when they go through the training program, they were given organizational project. Okay, you sat down in an ManCom meeting. Organization is facing this challenge. So as a project team, as a leadership development team, what project will you run to handle this particular crisis? So they were not just only taught subjects and courses, they were given organizational improvement projects. This was probably one of the best model or method of developing leaders, because they were really working on something that was needed by the organization. So that was my key. Unless you engage C-level in the program design, in the delivery of the program, and in the buyout, they will be hooked to it.
Thank you. Before we conclude, I would like to have the final thoughts or the tricks. All of you gurus would like to tell L&D fraternity moving forward, what would be few of the tricks they need to adopt to make L&D the real future, as well as to make L&D in a way that it can contribute to the bottom line productivity of the organization with upskilling and new skilling employees. Mr. Sajwani sir will take a final round here.
Okay, thank you, Farhan. My takeaway for the day from this session, or for my audience, first of all, let me say salam to Furqan Sahab. Seeing him after so long, and since he has joined a bank, and I was very carefully watching his title changes, and that is very interesting that the learning and development person is the right person basically to do the content management. And what my takeaway is, 7 o'clock. My takeaway is that the L&D needs to come at par with the current knowledge level of the industry or of the times. They just can't live in the 19th century and deliver as I think Rizvi Sahab mentioned that some people have been sharing the same slides during the live training sessions for 3 and more years. So that this is happening because there were no pressures on them to update themselves. And they used to think this is a new batch, so let's wahi wali slides dobara chipka ke inko chale jaएं. That was the norm. But now, since we are looking at a new to a shift in a paradigm shift in learning and development, I think they need to, the L&D teams need to update themselves. They need to do the research work. They need to look at the content that they are sharing across their organization and assess and monitor and evaluate that how these new methods and new techniques are going to benefit their audiences in the longer run. And there has to be a feedback collection mechanism in place as well, because if learning and development teams think that they are doing a brilliant job, and on the other side, when audiences or the recipients do not appreciate that, then there is a big flaw in the middle. So we need to address that as well. Ji Farhan.
Thank you. I would like to have Furqan, your comments.
I would say it's adopting the digital side of the learning methodologies, one. And second is about instilling the culture of continuous learning and collaborative ethos, actually. If they are in place within the organization, so continuous learning is one of the steps which what we call agile learning. So if we want to achieve the learning agility, this is what the first step should be, that there are frameworks should be synchronized with all those ethos of continuous learning culture within the organization.
Yes, Sohail Sahab.
A couple of things. I think I will only emphasize one or two, three things. First of all, as an L&D professionals, it's not just the job to really develop and deliver training. We have to first ensure that whatever we are delivering, is it adding value to strategic value to the business? Are we really solving the problem of the organization by delivering this training? Whether we are delivering through online or we are delivering it through classroom training, it should not just be, like Furqan said, a number covered or a course done. It should be totally aligned with, this is how I'm helping my business. This is how I'm helping my organization achieve its strategy. If it's not really aligned with the business strategy, it's not aligned with the corporate strategy of the organization, then it's just putting in number. You are developing people for no good reason. There should be an alignment. L&D should see the alignment with my task. What am I doing? I'm doing this training so that my people can learn this and achieve this. If you're not adding, every time we are doing something, some training program or designing a program, I think we need to ask ourselves as an L&D professional, why am I doing this? If you cannot answer this correctly, why am I doing this and what is the strategic value of this, then probably you shouldn't be doing it. And we need to change our L&D matrices also. What we measure is sometimes, like Furqan was saying, how many hours of training delivers, how many courses deliver, how many participants cover. These matrices are useless. We should not do it. What is our leadership bench strength? That is a measure to be determined. How many positions were filled in the organization internally? How many leaders were developed Within our organization, we didn't have to hire people from outside. These are the matrices that really add value and show contribution of the L&D department. So we need to, as an L&D professional, we need to think more strategically rather than tactically and operationally. That is my bigger input probably. Everything else has been said by Sajwani Saab and Furqan Saab, so I'm not going to repeat that, but that's my take on it.
And thank you, my guest speakers. It was a lovely discussion, a good dialogue, a thought which all the leaders need to explore, a thought which all the HRD and L&D fraternities need to think. The paradigm shifts towards the new perspectives, and the perspectives should definitely be linked with the business outcome, the deliverables, the key performance indicators for an organization's success. And that is the strategic role of HR professionals. Thank you for the day. See you next time on Management Wisdom webinar series by Beyond Paradigm Pvt Limited. Thank you. Khuda Hafiz.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Khuda Hafiz.